The concept today is the Word of God. So when humans chose the tree of knowledge, which is applied understanding and applied wisdom, they chose to see for themselves, to have that control where they're not going to have faith or just believe in what is unseen. They want to understand it in an applied way. So, because that became our identity of the created part became who we are, in order to reconnect us with God, to remember who we truly are, we needed the Word of God. So God gave this to Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible, and that is going to be the most spiritual this physical world gets. Even though the 5 books are written in history lesson or laws, it shows us the love of God. It shows us like this spiritual underlying message. And then Messiah comes along, and all that was like a shadow of who he is, where he's also called the Word of God, the living Torah, which is ultimately what it was all pointing to, because God wanted us a living version. And so ultimately, it's through Messiah, the Word of God, that we can reconnect with God. So this is a foundational concept where if we want to reconnect with our true selves, our spiritual selves, we can spend time reading the Word of God, but with the intent that God would reveal himself to us. So in order to have like this, what Jesus came to deliver to us is prayer and fasting. But the reason, like what this really is connecting with source, because ultimately, like this one, it says just by prayer. So in order to have all that Messiah is, all that he was doing, it's connect to source. Ultimately, that is like the one thing that matters, sitting at the feet of God. And you can ask specific questions and just wait for the answer to come to you. So like that the source, God, is pouring into you and you're reconnecting with him. That's like the one thing that really matters. But also the fasting is disconnecting from your body, where you don't have to rely on your body. It's like you're proving to your body that it's not what's in control. It's not who determines who you are. So this physical is not actually supposed to be your identity. That can be like a secondary acknowledgement where you realize what your body's going through, but that the ultimate identity is all that God is. So you actually already know all that God is. That is your actual identity. And the purpose of this is to help you become independent, where you're reconnected with your true selves. So as we do these studies, you should be asking source, that's the prayer part, to just pour into you, give you answers, ask questions, where you're becoming independent. It's not up to me to just hand this on down to you. I'm just helping you reach your spiritual realization. So Bereishit, this is the first word of the Bible, and it kind of just sums everything up, because it says like in the source, or in the head, translated also in the beginning. And I wanted to bring out this pictograph. It's like a house and a head, and an ox head, and maybe teeth, and a hand and a mark. So like you put all those pictures together and it forms a concept. And Hebrew is so good because like there's concepts within concepts. So this is in, like you go inside a house and it's in the head. So there's so many concepts that can be brought out. There's so many meanings, and none of them could be wrong. So I just want to bring out like just one aspect, and then you could have another aspect that God's revealing, and all that can be right, because God is really infinite. So everybody's perspective of like the same thing can like complete the whole picture. So in the head in the source. So all this kind of originates, and we're like the microcosm of the macro, where we're also in God's image. So all these things come with our thoughts, and our words are who we are. Our thoughts are who we are. And who God is just like consciousness. So it's within his head. Everything is within God. And then these are like some other versions of the Paleo Hebrew. This one's a little more blurry, but in the head, he created gods, or these could be judges, or like rulers, kind of like the angels. But people are also this, and it can actually read either way. But we could read it this way first: of in the source, he created gods, like he made space for, would be the created, where he just kind of like opened this up, like kind of like when you sit and you meditate. He allowed this to happen, and so as soon as he has a thought, then it's as sure as like he's also gonna have like the word, because like his will is always done. His thoughts are so pure, they always are gonna manifest. So in the head, he created gods, judges, and specifically it's like the direct object marker. The dividing of water is kind of what heaven is. So when we look at this is bringing out the word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It pierces even to the dividing of soul and spirit. So those are like two kinds of water, because both of these are both, if you look at the little footnotes, they're both spirit or breath is how they can get translated. So we have multiple souls, and it says that we're seated with Christ in the heavenly places. So it's like the bulk actually of our identity, of what's within our vessel. So our body is not actually who we are, even if we used to identify this way. It's like multiple souls, where you have like souls outside your body that can't even be contained in there. So like we're connecting with our higher self that's seated with Christ already in heavenly places. So the word of God, what this does here in Genesis 1:1 is that it's dual heavens. That's the meaning of the heavens. It's a dual word. It's not actually a plural word. It means that there comes in pairs. And specifically, we learn later on in the chapter that he's dividing the waters that were above, which could also more spiritually apply to soul or spirit, because in the New Testament, Jesus is talking about the spirit that would be given, and he's talking about the living water, and the word of God is like water that is dwelling in this vessel and manifesting in the flesh. So who we truly are is what's inside the vessel, and it comes in pairs. So we have like this higher version that's above, and so we're not just from below. Who we truly are is from above. We're connected with our heavenly or our spiritual, because heaven isn't actually a place, even if we use the word above, that we're connecting with this as our identity. And that's the tree of life. That's just like, I don't need proof. I don't need to see it with my eyes. That's who we are. And then also specifically like the direct object marker, the earth, and a meaning of the earth, like where that word is built from, is just pottery pieces. So this takes us back here, like the thoughts and intents of the heart, or the joints in the marrow probably would be more where earth has plates on it, like where the earthquakes rift into each other. So even our body is also made of parts, and that's like our pottery. But within the pottery is the light or the water, like what comes from up above. So that is connecting to that and accepting that like we're all that God is, that he breathed his breath into us, and that we're all in the head of God, like we're all inside source, like God is inside everything. And also in a way, like all of the heavens and the earth is his body. So I was like saying that there's two ways that you could read it, where in source or in the head, like that's like the beginning of a river that everything is connected to. And as long as you're connected with the source, then you are like that water is flowing from there. But if you're disconnected, then you're just going to dry up, because you can't just be your body, right? You have to be connected with the source of, if it's a river, if it's like if you're the ray of the sunshine, you have to be connected with God, and then you're endless. because you're connected with what is endless. So you're not your vessel. It's in source. If this in Hebrew, it could you could switch this around where God's created. So you could read that like he got help from angels to make this duality, like your multiple souls, and also the earth. So in the macrocosm, they're like God is all the heavens and the earth is like the body of God, where he's the consciousness that is within everything, but also within us, that we have this vessel that is like the earth, that is this broken pottery. And then we also have that our actual identity is like these multiple souls. Like we have the spirit, we have the intellect, like the heart. So all this gets translated different ways, but like the word of God is what helped divide this. So God is like this infinite with no divisions, and what he is doing here in Genesis 1:1 is he's making space for there to be like these temporary kind of things where we can enter into a vessel where we're truly what we are is like this infinite, but since God is infinite, he can also become finite. So like he can also like understand our weaknesses, because it says that who God is like this tree of life, right? But then also it says that man has become like one of us to know good and evil. So God also experiences with us all of these things because he's in us. Like all the fullness of God is still in there. So the word of God is that connecting factor that connects us, who he can make like him, gods, judges like him. But this aspect is kind of like a temporary garment that he puts on. His real name is the YHWH, but it says gods. And this is just like an aspect that I'm bringing out. In the source, he's making space for us to be like him, extensions of him. We're within him, just like we're within Messiah. And what we are primarily is like this division of water. This is what the word of God does. We're in the word of God. And also we are like, what is beneath that is the fact that we also can experience the knowledge, but ultimately what we are is who he is, which is like the life and the love, the spiritual unseen aspect. When you look into the word of God, you should not just see the Father, but in seeing the Father, you should see a reflection of who you are, which is this indescribable, but best described with things like love and things like life and things like existence. So you see who you are in the word of God, the source, the head, like all that God is. He's made space for you to judge, to discern, like in the word of God. That's where you're resting in. That's where you're receiving from to connect you to the source. Like it doesn't end at Messiah. The point is like the infinite source. It shows you who that is. That's your goal. Then you're able to discern like the souls, the spirit, the soul, what spirit somebody is of, right and wrong. Well, I guess right and wrong could also apply to the earth here, but you're discerning all the things that the word of God does. Right and wrong would probably be more like the joints in the mirror, what you apply without understanding. So all of this is who God is. As long as the earth falls underneath the heavens and doesn't try to rise above, then all of that knowledge that we have, it can be good, because all that God creates ends up being good, as long as all of your choices are still overwhelmed with love. So you're still treating everybody the same, even if you have all this knowledge about them and like you understand like good and evil. And so that can like have a factor in your understanding, but still it does not change that you treat everything with overwhelming love. So you're still treating Like, it doesn't change that you're treating everything with love. That is your overwhelming thing that influences all your decisions, everything that you do, even just everything that you think, that you're like sending out those vibes. So that your soul, your spirit, like this is who you are. This is your guiding factor. This is your identity. It is more like the tree of life. But as a secondary aspect, like you can also have benefited from all this study, like the applied knowledge. So that is the concept of the Word of God.